Hey there, First Sergeant Cap with Company D, 2nd United States Sharpshooters, and I'm just wrapping up some training, carrying my fully loaded knapsack, ready to go for this weekend's bivouac. We have a new season ahead of us this year, and I thought this would be a good opportunity while I'm training to show you what I keep in my knapsack for a bivouac event. Now, this isn't intended to be a dead-on historical how-to. There are great forums out there and even a couple other YouTube channels that can go into the specifics of issue-only gear. What I carry is largely historically accurate, historically inspired, but I also carry a lot of extra gear that the soldiers would not have, mostly because of the realities of reenacting and what I need or want to have with me for that weekend, whether it's the event or the experiences that we plan on doing that will influence what I carry. And it's also important to keep in mind that if you read the forums and you buy the gear, make sure you get out and practice to make sure your body can actually haul this stuff around for a weekend. It's my hope with this video, though, that you start to think critically about what you need to have a safe, fun, and historically accurate weekend. Make sure that you think about the necessities of life. Can you cook for yourself? Can you make fire? Can you stay warm at night? And if you hadn't thought about it, I hope this video will inspire you to ask more questions, talk to your company or your reenacting organization about additional resources, information, education to help you be more prepared as a reenactor and doing a fun, immersive event like a bivouac. So with that out of the way, let's see what I got in this thing. Before we dive into the contents of my Berdan knapsack, let's first cover what a bivouac is to begin with. Now, a bivouac, what it is exactly is going to vary wildly depending on the reenacting organization that you're a part of. They're going to have different historical regulations and parameters. It might be event specific, it might be a firing or non-firing event, but I think that the general idea of a bivouac is it is a living history military event in which you only take what you can pack in. So unlike a lot of the battle events and sort of mainstream events that many of us reenactors participate in, there are not going to be any big wall tents. There's not going to be a modern camp for people. You eat and sleep and live out of issue equipment as closely as your impression at the moment will allow you to. Sometimes this may push you to be even more inspired by history by actually understanding the equipment, thinking carefully about what you're packing and how to use it, and maybe how to share some of that weight. All said and done, this pack as it sits right here, ready to go for this weekend, minus the cartridge belt and box and bayonet and haversack and all that other stuff. Just the knapsack, ready to go, is just over 28 pounds. If I don't include my modern first aid kit, then it's about 26 pounds, and depending on the event, I can fluctuate the weight of my pack out based on what I think I'm going to need for that weekend. So this pack is kind of for this weekend, and depending on the event and the weather, the weight and what I take can vary. But I try to incorporate the basics of many bushcraft ideals, essentially the 5 C's. Do you have a cutting implement, a container, cover, cordage, and combustion? So let's start with the outside and work our way in. So the first thing I have up here is I have my bargain basement super cheap reenacting blanket. It is not the proper 5-pound blanket that is currently almost impossible to get right now. But if one does pop up, I'll get it, of course. But I also typically don't get all that cold. If I know we're going to have a cold event, I'll just wear a vest underneath my frock coat or my sack coat, and I'll just wear that when I sleep. But this is just a bargain basement, probably import wool. I think it was probably $30 or $40. But it keeps me warm enough at night, and I took a tip from John Gould's How to Camp Out, the Civil War veteran, and I sewed a drill lining on the inside of my blanket. So I have cotton drill on the inside, and it's sewn on one side and buttoned on the other, which is nice because it gives me a little extra warmth on a otherwise lightweight, inexpensive blanket. But since it essentially creates a pocket on the inside, if it does get absolutely frigid, then I can actually use this as almost like a mattress. I could fill it with dried grass and pine boughs or straw or anything else I can add to essentially make this like a ready-to-go quilt. And by having the one edge buttoned, he pointed out, it makes it a lot easier to dry out the blanket in the afternoon. He doesn't say if he used this during the Civil War. He did point out this was a good tip, and I think it highly likely that a resourceful soldier in the Civil War, having found a discarded shelter half, probably would have thought, you know what, it's pretty cold outside, I want to make my blanket a little bit thicker. So highly likely, but I don't have any specific documentation of it used in wartime. But I'm looking forward to trying this one out, one of my new things for this off season. The next thing I have on my kit, I keep my ground cloth on in this little flap on the inside back of the knapsack. It adds a little bit of extra padding. These Bivouac packs are actually pretty comfortable if you get used to them and you dial them in right. But what's nice is it's ready at a moment's notice. I don't even have to take my knapsack off to get to my ground cloth. So if we're setting up camp, it's raining, or I just need a nice dry place to lay stuff out on, this thing's absolutely ready to go at a moment's notice. On the outside cover, I always have rope. This is hemp. One of the cheapest places I find hemp rope is on Amazon. It's affordable. Manila rope was also super common during the war, but I like to carry hemp because I feel it's underrepresented in the hobby, but always handy. And then I have my fabulous Bivouac knapsack mess kit, multi-piece. I'm not going to go into all the detail of the parts of it, but what I want to do is show you what I keep in the knapsack mess kit. Because we have this nice big pot, I can put my cooking implements, or many of them, inside the top here. So right on top, easy access. The first thing I have ready to go is my fire kit. So just a poke sack. I have some period correct matches I picked up from the sutler of Fort Scott. Let's see, I have some natural fiber string so I can make tinder bundles out of. And I have several pieces of fat wood. And I have some other sort of dried natural fibers you could pick up just about anywhere. Even if you live in a major city in an apartment or something, you can go to a local park and start collecting dried grass and fine twigs or something like that you can use in your fire kit. And just in case, typically as first sergeant, I'm training people, or maybe we might be in a hurry to make a fire, maybe weather's coming or something like that. I'll keep a little chunk of these cheater logs you get at just about any grocery store or outdoor store, box store for helping you make fires. They come in those boxes, and these light up, and they'll light even subpar wood pretty quickly. So that's right on top of my mess kit. And then my other poke sack, and this varies. This is essentially my spices and sort of my kitchen stuff. So I have a little bottle of dish soap because I don't like germs and contamination in my food. Call me a farb for that. Bottle of sweet oil or olive oil, multi-purpose, great for maintaining your metal equipment, for frying in, for cooking with. You can also use it to grease numerous metal items. Use it to clean your rifle with if you need to. Oil stones, tons of uses for olive oil. I highly recommend it. And then I have a little bottle of some Old Bay seasoning, a couple packets of sugar, and in case my food's bland, I even have a little cheater packet of sriracha. So those are, yeah, the sugar packets and the sriracha, of course, are absolutely farb, but those are tucked away in here. So if the time allows. If you want to learn more about the construction and the multi-pieces of the mess kit, be sure to check out our Berdan knapsack video, where Captain Whitehall walks you through sort of the history, uses, and layers of this knapsack. So, going into the knapsack, another thing I always keep handy, as first sergeant, I'm the company's first safety officer, so I have, in a very bright and super farby bag, the first aid kit. I have no intention to ever try to disguise this or make this look period correct. If someone gets hurt, something happens, people are getting tunnel vision, people are stressed out, they're not going to want to try to like parse through what sort of period correct container life-saving materials are going to be found in. I want this to be bold and quickly visible in an instant. So this is about 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds, kind of your basic first aid kit, basic medications. I have a few additional items. I always keep ice packs in here, those snap ones. Those really help if you have someone on a march or at an event who's just turning all sorts of white because of heat exhaustion or dehydration. Maybe they get burned or stung by an animal or an insect. Then an ice pack will really help them. A lot of band-aids, you get a lot of minor cuts, but since we're outside, they're really prone to infection. So I have different type of topical antibiotic ointments and sprays, iodines, and such like that. Sort of the basic entry level. And you can pick this up at just about any pharmacy, drugstore, and then you can modify it to what you're competent in using and what your unit typically needs. Typically, they just need to clean out a cut and have a band-aid, maybe into the ice pack. Next thing I have is my trusty tool, my period correct style original carpenter's hatchet. You've seen this in our cutting edge tool video. I made a sheath for it, and I also made the handle. Nice and oiled, ready to go for repairs, processing firewood, making tent stakes, any number of uses. Having a hatchet handy is super important. This weighs complete about, I think just shy of 2 pounds, like 1.15 pounds, something like that. Totally worth it in my opinion. Now, depending on the type of bivouac your unit is going to be doing, your unit may need more tools or less tools. And you may be asking yourself, like, well, why are you packing all this stuff? The soldiers back then wouldn't have carried all this garbage. And you're right. This is not a video on how to pack to the manual, and not what every single soldier was likely issued. For that information, please check out a website like The Authentic Campaigner. I build my pack with historical inspiration and the realities of the hobby. Soldiers during the Civil War could pack really light because they had miles of wagon train supporting them. They had the opportunity for battlefield pickup. They had the opportunity to live off the land. And I'm sure most modern people would not appreciate historical reenactors robbing their barns for tools and ripping off the siding of their homes to make campfires with. So because we don't have those original support systems, I carry a little bit more equipment than they would have. And the other thing too is, as an individual, I like to be more self-sufficient than a lot of other people. If you have a really close unit, then you can share who carries what. And I think when it comes to tools, that's a really important conversation to have. We all know from diaries and written accounts that one of the most common shared things to carry was were the mess equipment. Pots, pans, kettles, sometimes parts of the stove, depending on how big the unit was and what the march was like and whether or not they could move the wagons through the mud. But say you have to have a shovel to make a fire pit or an earthwork. Same goes for picks, axes and saws for processing firewood. Maybe you're making structures that weekend. Maybe you're making fortifications. And so obviously you don't want one person carrying all those tools, so you need to have a conversation. What do we need and who's going to carry it? So I always have this no matter what, and then we kind of figure things out as we go. The next thing I have is my shelter half. Now, most of the time, I don't set this up as a tent. Typically, I just use this as an extra blanket or a pillow if I feel like I need it. The back of these Berdan knapsacks make excellent pillows. So typically, this ends up as another blanket. But again, if it's really sunny or really windy, then I might set this up as a lean-to for a little bit of protection from the elements. Handy for, when we have a pit stop on the march, I have the local Rockland Gazette. A bunch of us in Company D were originally from Rockland, Maine, so I have a copy of the local paper so I can read. Super hardcore. The size isn't right, but I'm working on that. Then, of course, I have an extra shirt handy. Soldiers always worried about making sure to have an extra set of clothes if they could, so that way on laundry day they could wear their clean ones and they can dry their wet ones that they just washed on the backs of their knapsacks on the march. So an extra shirt and an extra pair of socks. And then I have sort of my hygiene items. I have a washcloth. This is, again, Huck fabric. We've talked about it in other videos. I buy it by the yard, so then I can custom make the towels to the sizes and proportions that I want. And I've left the edges raw, so if I need to have a neat little impression, then I can work on stitching and hemming the edges during some downtime so it looks neat. So I have a small one for washing and a large one for drying. Then for personal care items, I get a lot of stuff from the Sutler of Fort Scott. So I have the soap. So I have a little tin of soap. I highly recommend the tins, because then your soap doesn't get everything gooey and wet inside your knapsack. I have one of their really nice toothbrushes, tooth powder. I have a brush. I have thick hair, so a comb doesn't work for me. Farby lip balm, but I also usually keep tallow, so if I need to be super hardcore, then I'll ditch the Burt's Bees. And then I have just this little extra tin where I keep some basic medication, usually something for headaches or allergies. And then I have a pocket mirror that I made. So keep all that in one little bag. And then one thing that is a personal care item that I do not keep in that bag, because I need to have it handy, hopefully, is a pack of Gaiety's medicated powders. Medicated papers, sorry. This is some period correct toilet paper that you can get from the Sutler of Fort Scott. Make sure that, as you're packing, that you don't forget, how to take care of yourself when nature calls. Pick some of this up, or, if you're in our unit, modern teepee isn't going to get you a demerit, but make sure you think about the necessities of life. These are pretty cool. And then I have a pocket lantern, folding lantern with some extra beeswax candles. Don't use this that much, but some nights it gets pretty dark and, we need to check a manual or, play games or something like that. Speaking of games, I have a poke sack with some cards and some dice, as well as my harmonica. So this is like my entertainment pack. So whether I want to play some games of chance, maybe some cribbage, some euchre, maybe some chuck-a-luck, or play some songs around the campfire, I'm all set here to keep the morale and spirits up. Now, apparently Company D had one of the best gamblers in the Army of the Potomac, according to Wyman White. It's definitely not me. But I do have my wallet, and inside I do keep some period correct money on hand. Probably have, I don't know, 20 bucks or something like that. Not quite a month's pay as a first sergeant in the sharpshooters. More on entertainment, I have my tobacco pouch and my pipe. Again, I got this from the Sutler Fort Scott, and it just has all my smoking implements on the inside. Sleeping cap, can't recommend this thing enough. This makes a huge difference when you're trying to stay warm at night. Trust me, wear something on your head when you go to bed. You'll be a lot more comfortable. Housewife, absolutely essential. We've used this tons of times in videos. Be really thoughtful about how you stock this up. It'll keep you happy and keep your clothes and your equipment ready to go and ready to use. Then I have a couple completely sealed with the tear tag on it, reenacting rounds for the Sharps rifle. I think Wyman White said one day, is either at Gettysburg or Chancellorsville or something like that, he fired 190 rounds. So if we were doing like a sort of like a battle scenario bivouac, I'd have a lot more ammo in my knapsack. And we have a lot of written accounts of sharpshooters carrying lots of ammo in their knapsack. Then I have leather gloves. Can't recommend these enough. Super handy. If you choose not to wear leather gloves, you know, for pulling stuff out of the fire or doing fatigue detail, then make sure you at least have a good period correct handkerchief to keep your hand from getting burnt on pots and pans and your coffee mug. Then I don't always have these, but I do have a set of tent pins that I made on my spring pole lathe. Those are also handy if you're going to set up for different scenarios, like different flies, holding stuff down. There's a lot of good reasons to have tent pins. In our organization, a lot of our events are kind of like football fields, kind of disappointing. But that's also why I'll pack those, because if there's not a tree around that you could pilfer from, then making field stakes is kind of impossible, if not too much of a pain, or your materials are going to be subpar. So because of the realities of our organization, I'll pack those. And then I have a spare pencil. I always have a pencil in my notebook, in my haversack. A button board. I don't usually carry this, but if I may need to like clean up for a formal event or something like that, I'll have this handy. And then I have a bottle of snakebite juice. And then this is my toolkit. And this is something I'm ongoing working on and to dial in. So I have a small tin of rotten stone for polishing all number of things. If you want to pack light, just use wood ash. I have wool flannel cleaning patches for the rifle or whatever I might need. I have my buff stick. I have more patches. Actually, I wrapped my polishing toothbrush. So this is my cleaning toothbrush, bone handle, boar bristle, period correct. And then I have a poke sack with my axe puck in it, because if you take tools, you need to be able to maintain them in the field. If you think it's unlikely that you'll have to do it, you could probably leave some of this stuff at home, but you never know. So I just have a basic Lansky puck for tuning up axes and stuff like that. My tools are usually sharp, but if someone else is loaning something or they bring their own, odds are it's not going to be as sharp as mine. So sharp tool is a safe tool. And so that's for like axes, hatchets, and then I have a medium fine Arkansas stone. Comes in these little leather pouches for sharpening my knife. My knife's not in my knapsack, it'd be in my pocket, and as you've seen in other videos, I have a Marlin spike knife. And as I spoke of earlier, my tin of tallow, numerous uses, brass brush, and I have a spool of cordage. Saw a lot of wooden spools like this when we went to Maine in all the different maritime shops. So this is also handy. Nice period correct way to kind of organize your cordage. And then, as you've also seen in our tenting videos, lots of cut nails for making impromptu tent poles or making structures, making repairs around camp. So I think that is about it. And that just covers my camp gear. Like I said, everything you pack is going to vary based on the event that you're participating in. It's also going to vary on what you can physically carry. So make sure you are conscious of that. And whether you're going to an event or you're going to be doing a bivouac, make sure you squeeze in some training time. If you are loading up your knapsack, make sure you walk around the block. I have a lot of property with hills and woods and trails and uneven terrain. So if I can't make it to a long walking trail, I'll just rock around my property and try to get a nice workout in. It'll help me dial in how I want my pack straps. If your pack straps, if you get like a brand new double bag, for example, or maybe like a cheap import one, don't forget a lot of all that buckles and straps, those are leather. So if they're too hard, oil them and they'll soften up and they'll form to your shoulders a little bit more. So yeah, I mean, get your shoulders, get your back used to wearing it, because it's going to be a huge shock to your body, especially if you don't leave the house much, you don't exercise much, and next thing you know, you're living outdoors 24/7, and you have to pack all your own gear. Who knows how far you're going to have to march or how long your events are going to be with all of that gear on your body. So do yourself and your parts a favor by doing a little bit of extra training. Make sure you're mentally and physically prepared, as well as historically prepared. Like I said, I didn't stress over the accuracy of what I'm carrying and how much I am. I'm going for historically inspired and sort of the practical needs of what I'm going to need for that weekend. But there are plenty of opportunities out there for you to do more research. There's probably going to be diaries of the unit you're portraying where soldiers are actually explaining what is on their body at any given point during their term of service. So be sure to do your research, and you can even completely mimic exactly what that person in your unit wore. Let us know if you have any questions down below. Thanks so much for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time.